going on, you guys? How you doing? Hope everyone's doing well. We're having a good evening. They're Dots home-style pretzels. Parmesan garlic. Pretty good. Not too bad. I needed to eat something because I just got out of the gym and I hit legs. I can barely walk at this point, so. You need to try the purple bag Dots with Nutella. Really? Well, I do like hazelnut. Matter of fact, I got hazelnut ice cream, so I should probably eat a little bit of that tonight too. All right, so okay. I haven't read the Bible in about a month. All right. I haven't read the Bible in about a month. I was sick for about 3 to 4 weeks. All right. No, I'm being dead serious. I haven't read the Bible for a month. And I just read it today for the first time. And I was reading Matthew chapter 21. Now, granted, there were two people that was asking me a couple of questions about a couple of chapters in the Bible about what it means for this guy to pick up sticks on the Sabbath day and basically be stoned over it. And I gave him an answer. I told him what it meant. But it kind of occurred to me that he kind of asked me, he was like, how do you know this is what it means? I was like, just based off of all my research, understanding things, this is the only thing it could really mean. And I think it's very important to look into this. I really do. I think it's very important to actually look into this story. And I think we're going to go ahead and do so tonight. I also was reading Matthew chapter 21, and I'm always having epiphanies, man. I'm going to tell you the epiphany tonight. All right. I was also reading Matthew chapter 21 when Jesus was going from the place of Bethphage, which means house of the unripe figs, to the Mount of Olives, finally to Jerusalem. Tells his disciples that there's a donkey and a colt. Go ahead and go untie them and bring them to me. And he walks into Jerusalem. It's a very highly esoteric story. All right. And I started to realize a couple of things within the story and the narrative. But I want to go ahead and get into why the man picks up sticks on the Sabbath day. And I think it's very important to look at this. I think you guys are going to see an understanding that you haven't really heard before, but we're going to talk about it. Let me go ahead and pull up the scriptures, and we'll go ahead and get straight into it. Okay? One moment. Okay? One moment. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this. This is Numbers chapter 15, verse 33. Okay. Numbers chapter 15, verse 33. Let's go ahead and unpack this using verses in the scripture to actually explain the story. All right. This is going to be a brand new teaching that I'm doing tonight. I've never done a teaching on this before. But you guys go ahead and take what I say, put it up on the shelf. Can't hear me. Take what I say, put it up on the shelf. Can't hear me. All right, can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me now? Let me know if you can hear me. Put a thumbs up. All right. Just let me know if you can hear me. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about this. All right. Let's talk about the story of the Sabbath day. What's going on here? Let's break it down and let's go from there. Let's break it down and let's go from there. So, first and foremost, what we're looking at is verse 33 in Numbers 15. All right? In Numbers chapter 15, verse 33, the Bible says, and they that found him, well, verse 32 actually, and while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man that gathered sticks upon the Sabbath day. And they that found him gathering sticks brought him unto Moses and Aaron and unto all the congregation. First off, let's go ahead and break this down. The man was gathering sticks on the Sabbath day in the wilderness. The wilderness in the Bible is always a representation of meditation. It's a man that's gathering sticks. Sticks are separate pieces. Okay? It's like you gotta pick up separate pieces to make a whole. There's a difference between picking up sticks and picking up your cross. Remember, the cross is actually one whole piece, all right? But these sticks are separate individual pieces that you have to exert energy into on the Sabbath day. The Sabbath day is the seventh day, but it's always a representation of the place of rest. Whereas we know that the place of rest is a representation of that seventh chakra. The seventh chakra, or that seventh day, that place of rest, is the place where you take no thought. All right? So the children of Israel were in the wilderness. They found a man that gathered sticks upon the Sabbath day. And they that found him gathering sticks brought him unto Moses and Aaron and unto all the congregation. Moses' name actually means drawer of water. Aaron's name actually has to do with the light bearer. Okay? So what we can see here is a highly esoteric story that's trying to tell us about someone that is doing work during a time of rest. So what ends up occurring? Verse 34, and they put him in ward because it was not declared what should be done to him. A ward is a prison. Jesus makes it clear in Matthew chapter 5 that if you do not agree with your adversary in the way, you will be thrown into the prison and you will not escape that place until you have paid the last penny. A ward is a prison. The prison is a representation of that which is of the lower carnal nature. In the book of Jonah, the Bible talks about when Jonah was swallowed up by the whale or the fish, this great fish. He went to hell. But there were bars. Hell is a representation of the lower three chakra. This is why it says he was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, just like the Son of Man would be in the heart of the earth. You have to descend and go to the bottom in order to come back to the top. What is happening with this man that is picking up sticks, he is actually being thrown into a prison. And when he's thrown into the prison, they don't know what they're going to do with him. He's locked up. Jonah said he was in prison. He was locked up. Jesus said that as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, so shall the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth. He also tells you about how he came to free those who were under the law of bondage because they were held captive. To be held captive is a representation to be held into a carnal understanding of spiritual scriptures. Okay? Verse 35. And the Lord said unto Moses, the man shall be surely put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones without the camp. Okay. So now let's think about it. This man is getting ready to be stoned. Because he was picking up sticks on the Sabbath day. But what does it mean to be stoned? What does it really mean to be stoned? The pineal gland is a stone. To be stoned is a representation for the fleshly nature to die. The sapphire stone, exactly, Melissa. The sapphire stone, Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 1. The stone is going to actually stone the man. Or he's going to be stoned because he's picking up sticks on the Sabbath day. What this is trying to tell you, and we're not talking about smoking the ganja here when we talk about being stoned. But it's talking about the crucifixion of the lower nature through the higher. It's the crucifixion of the lower nature through the stoning of the man. Man is always a representation of flesh in the Bible. This is why it says, no man has ever seen God. Flesh cannot see God. The book of Psalms 82 says that the angels, the Elohim, would die like men. They would die in flesh. It's appointed once for a man to die, then the judgment. Man is flesh. This is why man dies. Your spirit never dies. Your spirit goes on forever and ever and ever. So what is happening here in the story is this man is actually being placed into a prison or a ward to be held until he is stoned. The stoning's not bad, though. The stoning's not a bad thing. All right? The stoning is actually a good thing. The stoning needs to happen. Why do you think Jesus sits there and says, ye without sin cast the first stone? Sin is transgression of the law. I just got some restrictions. I don't know why. Sin is transgression of the law. But where there is no law, there is no sin. The reason why Jesus sits there and says that the one without sin cast the first stone is because you cannot enter the Holy of Holies when you are under sin, which is the law. The law, in an understanding of physical carnal nature, keeps you in your lower nature. This is why they put him in a ward, because he's trying to do work, use energy to pick up sticks on the Sabbath day. This is a man, yes, exactly, seed man. This is a man that stays in his lower vibration. This is why Jesus sits there and says in John 8, he without sin cast the first stone. To stone someone is not an evil thing. I'm not talking about fleshly. I'm talking about spiritually. I'm talking about the stone, the pineal gland, that actually destroys everything as above, so below. It destroys everything. It roots everything out. But as it's rooting things out, what it's doing is it's rooting out the fleshly understanding and the fleshly nature. The true Sabbath day in the biblical scriptures is not talking about a literal day. The true Sabbath day, or the seventh day, is a representation of the seventh chakra, the place where you take no thought, the place of rest. This is why Jesus sits there and says in Matthew chapter 5 or 6, he says, which one of you can take a thought and add a cubit unto his stature? You can't take a thought and add a cubit unto your stature, because when you try to take a thought and add a cubit unto your stature, you stay in a lower nature and you're not truly in the Sabbath. So, what's going on here? When you make this story fleshly and physical, you are actually doing damage to humanity. By taking an esoteric story that's talking about spiritual nature and higher evolution of man to come to the Sabbath day, which is that seventh chakra, which is a representation to take no thought. If you try to invert this and make this fleshly, you're actually making God a morally corrupt deity. Let's put it this way. The Bible says that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. If God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and God lives within you, and you don't think about unaliving people, why would God ever think about that? If you don't think about taking someone's life because they've done you some harm or whatever the case may be, why would God ever do that? That's not what this story is telling you. It has nothing to do with a physical flesh and blood man getting ready to be unalived on a Sabbath day for picking up sticks. It's ludicrous. That's crazy. That's why Paul says in the book of Timothy, the Jews believe in fables. The Pharisees and Sadducees were so radically indoctrinated that it came to the point where they would take an innocent life, not because they thought in their thinking and they wanted to understand things through their mind, but because they worshiped a book. That's why. That's what happens to people. It's not in their own identity that they want to hurt someone, but they literally believe that by following a book that is telling them certain things that they think are fleshly, that it's okay to do these things because God said it was all right. What they're actually doing is coming out with a warped sense of the true nature of God. This is the reason why Jesus had to come. Do you not know this is the reason why Jesus had to come? He had to actually tell the Jews that what they were worshiping was a morally corrupt understanding of the true nature and character of the living God. Yeah. This is why he says in John chapter 17 in his high priestly prayer, Father, I thank you for making yourself known unto my disciples. No one knew the true nature of the Father in that time because everything was always under a corrupted system. Jesus did not come to tell the people that they were chosen. He came to tell them that they were wrong. Their understanding of the scriptures were wrong. This is why he said, you truly do err in the scriptures. This is why he sat there and said, Moses did write about me. But there's a reason why. The Pharisees' warped mind made these things fleshly. The true nature of the book is a spiritual understanding. This is why a house divided against itself cannot stand. If the house is fleshly and spiritual, it cannot stand. This is why 70 AD occurred when the temple was destroyed. This is why everything is all spiritual or everything is fleshly. This is why their house couldn't stand. Their physical house, that physical temple, which they thought is where God resided when God never resided in physical temples. This is why the Essenes stayed away from Jerusalem. They knew that the blood and animal sacrifice that was going on in the flesh in those days was actually handing energy and power over to another source. This is the Bible. This is the scriptures. This is what the scriptures are about. When you come to this understanding, you come to know there's no other way to look at the scriptures. God never unalived anyone. This is why Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, you have heard it said, eye for an eye, and tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, love your enemies. He's taken Exodus chapter 21 and he's flipping it on its head. Because the people that he was talking to were making all this stuff fleshly and physical. When it talks about eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, it's not talking about something where you take someone's life, okay? Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe that there are people out there, especially with, I'm going to use Pig Latin here, the Ild Che Rafficking Te, that deserve capital punishment. I do. All right? But as far as taking someone's life because they have a disagreement on views with you, no. When you sit there and want to take someone's life because they have disagreeing views, you need to reevaluate your life. You need to reevaluate how brainwashed you actually are into your religious understanding. All these religions were spiritual, esoteric books that were trying to tell you a higher reality of truth. Because the kingdom of God is within you. So now, what ends up happening is, what's going on in our day and age? Your tongue gives life or death. You can manifest life into this existence, or you can manifest death. It's the power of the tongue. But I'm going to tell you this much. When you take the Bible and you make it fleshly, you are committing idolatry. How are you committing idolatry? Because you're worshiping the God outside of yourself. You're making God some entity that sits in yonder heavens, that goes ahead and just chills out with a white beard on a throne, has been sitting there for the past 6,000 years. It's surprising his back has never gone out on him. And you take this anthropomorphic understanding of what God is, and you apply it to him because of what you see in space, time, and matter. And that's exactly what the religious leaders did, what Israel did in the days of Christ. That's why Christ came to correct them. All right? Seedman says, man, you are making it all seem so easy to understand. Everything that you say makes sense. It took me a lot of time to get to this. All right? A lot of monkey wrenches had to be thrown in the midst. And then I would have to start all over with the Bible and reread the scriptures. When we look at it through this route, through this understanding, there's no other way to look at it. It's a very deep book, and it can be very overwhelming. But at the end of the day, either it's correct or it's not. The problem is, as little children, we have been taught and have grown up to believe that all these things are fleshly. There's going to be a literal rapture and a literal 7-year tribulation and all this literal stuff that's going to go on. But it's because of the indoctrination that we've been placed under. We would manifest these very things out into the world ourselves. Just like Honeybee said. When you externalize God, it's an idol. When you internalize God, it's an embodiment. Guys, make sure to go follow Honeybee. All right. If you're not following Honeybee, make sure to follow Honeybee. Okay? Her last video, oh my God. Melissa, oh my. You were so clear in what you had to say on that live when you were talking about what you were with immortality, when you were talking about the image of God. It was so clear. It was amazing. It really was. All right? It truly was. Guys, make sure to go follow Honeybee if you're not. All right? There is no self-worship. There is no self-worship. You see, the Bible tells you in the Song of Solomon, a very esoteric book, very highly esoteric book. It tells you that everyone wants to take care of others' vineyards, but they don't want to take care of their own vineyard. You cannot fully love someone until you fully love yourself. You cannot fully love humanity and the people around you until you fully love and have come to understand who you are as a person and your authenticity, that you are a growing, maturing person. Granted, you might go through some things in your life, but at the end of the day, if you're always looking for the truth, no matter what, no matter if hell or high water comes and you want the truth, you're going to come to that truth, okay? You will come to that truth. You see, Adrian says Eastern Orthodox agrees with that. That's unbelievable, man, because I've never heard it as it is. Maybe it's in the upper echelons of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Maybe that's what it is, because if they're teaching this, it's amazing. It really is. If this is what the Eastern Orthodox Church is teaching, what we're talking about right now, then every single one of us needs to go become Eastern Orthodox. And what I mean by that is this, not as in the sense of a title with religion, but to go learn the doctrine and the understanding of the scripture. If that is the case, then what I would say is people need to go learn this. All right? Hey, Brandy, how you doing? Hope all is well. So is it fair to not like anyone else because you don't like yourself? Absolutely. That's exactly what it's basically saying. That's exactly what it's saying. All right? If you don't like yourself, you're not going to like other people. That's a problem right there, all right? People. That's a problem right there, all right? Because you got to come into contact with the world, all right? Wait, so 420 MW Truth Seeker says, that's why I'm so surprised he hasn't been banned. Because of the stuff that I talk about, right? Yeah, because I don't beat around the bush. All this stuff it's trying to tell you a higher esoteric truth, all right? Yeah, you got to walk with confidence. You have to. You got to walk with your head held high. All right? Okay. I want to go ahead and go over this one more time with you guys. All right? About the man picking up the sticks on the Sabbath day. Because that's what we were looking at. Let's review it real quick, okay? And while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, barefoot, yep, you got to own it. You got to own it. Absolutely, brother. So. And while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man that gathered sticks upon the Sabbath day. To gather sticks is a representation to gather or work in a place that's supposed to be a time of rest. So what the children of Israel did, Israel means Isis Ra El. It's the Holy Trinity, the Father, Mother, and children, a representation of soul, spirit, and body. What they did was they went to talk to Moses about what should be done with this man, because remember, man is flesh. When they talked to Moses and Aaron, Moses meaning the drawer of water, Aaron meaning that light bearer, they went to them and unto all the congregation. And they took that man, they put him in ward, they put him in a prison, because it was not declared what should be done with him. Because it was not declared what should be done with him. When they put him in a prison, the prison is a representation of the lower carnal nature. Remember, the story is esoteric. All right? If the story literally did happen, it's a morally corrupt story. If the story literally did happen and it was okay for someone to literally be unalived, then this makes God an unaliver. All right? But that's not what this story's talking about. It's trying to tell you a higher reality of truth. So they put the man in ward. The ward is prison. Jesus sits there and says, agree with your adversary in the way. Unless you are thrown into the prison, you will not escape that place until you have paid the last penny. Jesus says that he came to free the captives. And then on top of that, in the story of Jonah, when Jonah gets swallowed up by the whale, there's bars that he says he's in, almost like a prison. All right? So now what ends up happening is, the Lord said unto Moses, the man shall be surely put to death. Remember, man is flesh. This is a representation of flesh ideologies. This is a representation of carnal understanding, carnal thinking, a carnal mind. The man shall be surely put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones without the camp. And all the congregation brought him without the camp and stoned him with stones, and he died as the Lord commanded Moses. The stoning is very important to understand because the pineal gland is a stone. It's a sapphire stone. What's happening is the stoning that's happening, it's the stoning of the man, the stoning of the flesh, the stoning of the carnal nature. Which is why in John chapter 8, Jesus says, he without sin cast the first stone. You cannot be in sin. You cannot be in the law of carnality in order to cast a stone. You cannot be under the law of Moses in the fleshly sense because you won't be able to cast the stone. You have to be in the prison cell. You have to be in a place of wardship. You have to be in that place where you are thrown in the bars into the deepness and the lower nature of your life to go through your dark night of the soul in order to actually come out on top and have the fleshly nature stoned out of you so that you can rise to the top. To the spirit man nature. Do you know how I know that this is the God honest truth, what I'm saying here? Because in the book of Joshua, it talks about how the giants were stoned. It talks about how the giants in the book of Joshua were actually stoned when they made war with Israel. What are the giants? The giants are always a representation of the carnal sensations of life. It's always a representation of the five senses. This is why Joshua in chapter 10, verse 22, took 5 giants and threw them into a cave, brought them out, and crucified them on 5 crosses. It's a representation of the dulling of the 5 senses of your lower carnal nature to be brought out and crucified. This is why commonality comes from 5. This is why Jesus says, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Because it deals with 5 loaves according to 1 Samuel 21. Commonality deals with the 5 senses. It always deals with carnality. It always deals with what you can see. But this has to be stoned. And the only way it can be stoned is through this. The high tower. Did you actually know when it talks about how the Israelites made war, it talks about how they have bows, and the bows that they use, they shoot their arrows out, and when they hit the enemy, the enemy drops. Do you know what that's talking about? This is going to be really freaking cool. If you've never did a word study on the word bow in Hebrew, what does a bow look like? The bow, in actual reality, is known as the iris. It's the iris. It's the eye. It's the seeing eye. And what happens is, through your meditation, through your contemplation, through what you believe, what happens is the arrow, which is light, it's an arrow of light, it shoots down into the lower carnal nature where that lower carnality and sensation of those giants actually dwell within your inner being. That's what it's talking about. This is what the Bible's talking about. I've done a word study on this. I've done the digging on this. It talks about how they're in high towers. It talks about how they have bows up in these high towers, and they're shooting those arrows, and it's arrows of light, and it's hitting them. All right? That's why the Apostle Paul makes it clear that we war in our inner members. The battle, the war that's taking place is in the inner members. Did you know that the war, the battle that's taking place between heaven and earth, the heart being the middle ground, according to the book of Psalms, David talks about this. When the carnal nature is fighting the spirit nature, and the spirit nature overcomes the carnal nature, there is death that is occurring in the lower carnal nature, and there is blood that is being shed. That is the animal sacrifice. That's the bloodshed. That's why in the book of Ezekiel, it actually tells you about the blood upon the sword actually being a sacrifice unto God. Because the blood upon the sword, it's not physical, it's spiritual. It's telling you about the blood of the lower carnal nature, the war that's happening inside of you. It's being put to rest. It's being put to the grave. It's amazing stuff. It talks about chariots, and it talks about war horses and swords and armor. And Paul tells you about putting on the armor of God. All right? The chariots, the war horses, all of these things going up into flaming fire. It's talking about the Merkabah. The Merkabah is actually talking about the energy that rises up in you. All of this stuff is esoteric. It's amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely freaking amazing when you really start to understand what these words are talking about and when you put the patterns and everything together. All right? Yep. There you go. Up to the Kundalini. Up. Jacob Slatter, you got it. You got it. Jacob Slatter. That winding staircase according to 1 Kings chapter 6. The winding staircase that you must descend. This is why the Apostle Paul actually said, whoever he was, I mean, his name might have been Paul, his name might have been Apollo of Tyana, all right? This is why what he said while he was on the road to Damascus, it's not a literal story. I don't believe he literally saw a man, okay? I do not believe, because the word Damascus means the beginning of salvation, okay? Why? Why does it mean the beginning of salvation? Because remember, Paul of Tarsus was under the law of a carnal commandment. He was not under spiritual everlasting life. He was on the road to Damascus because it would be here where the beginning of his true salvation would take place. Remember, Paul, or whoever he was, he actually talks about how he had to get away from things and go study for a while. All right? Exactly, Seedman, where he opened up his pineal gland. Exactly. This is why he actually talks about how I was a Pharisee among Pharisees, a tribe of Benjamin, Hebrew among Hebrews. But guess what? I count it all as dung. I count it all as a bunch of shit, all right? It's a big old pile of horse shit, all right? This is basically what he would be telling you, all right? It's a big old pile of horse shit. All right? It doesn't amount to anything when you make it all fleshly, when you make it like the Hebrews and the Pharisees make it. I count it all as dung, except Christ. He knew that these things were all spiritual. This is why he had to go study for that time. He had to go study. When he studied, he came back and everything shifted. All right? It's just unbelievable. It truly is. It's an amazing, amazing story. All right? All right, guys. One moment here. Okay. I'm going to stay with you guys a little bit longer, all right? Because I am going to upload this on YouTube. I need to upload this on YouTube, all right? Yeah, he went to go learn all the pressure points in your body so he can subdue you. We got to do 3 to 4 hours. Sometimes, man, I've been on here for the past couple of nights as it is, and I still need to do a little bit of digging. So, what do you guys want to talk about? All right? Does anyone want to talk about anything specific in the Bible, in the scriptures? That is the meaning on this picking up the sticks on the Sabbath day. All right? It's not a literal story about flesh and basically just a literal story. That's not what it is. Oh, you want to talk about Samson and his hair? You want to talk about Samson and his hair? Concepts versus figures. What do you mean, gentle jeweler? What do you mean by concepts versus figures? You talking about like the way characters are in the Bible? Certain characters. Okay, so if you guys were here yesterday, you know that Light of Ascension came on my channel and started just going off, all right? Started going off, as it is. And about 2 years ago, we were talking on the phone, and actually it wasn't even us talking. He just ran his mouth the entire time. And then finally, he just decided to block me. Well, just like I told him, and just like he made an ass of himself last night on this live, because he didn't want to have this conversation. He just wanted to keep on going and going and going. It depends on the way you look at God in the Old Testament and the New. Jesus says a house divided against itself cannot stand. If you make God flesh in the Old Testament and you make God spirit in the New, this is a house divided against itself. When the house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. This is why the Pharisees were told by Jesus, your father is the devil. The devil is a representation of the flesh, making things fleshly, physical. What ends up happening is, if you look at God as a flesh being in the old and spiritual in the new, then you're going to get a warped sense of morality. You cannot justify unaliving a man for picking up sticks on the Sabbath day. You cannot justify virgins being taken and gold and silver being vandalized from other tribes. You cannot justify men, women, children, animals all being slaughtered. You cannot justify any of this stuff when you make it fleshly in the Old Testament. But when you make it spiritual, this changes the character of God in the Old Testament. So what I would tell you, as your question was, is the God of the Old Testament the God of the New? The God of the Old Testament. How is it that the God of the Old Testament is the God of the New? The only way is if it's spiritual. That's the only way. That's the only way that it can come into harmony. That's the only logical explanation. You cannot justify it any other way. This is why we have atheists in this world. Because they look at the nature of the God of the Old Testament and then they make it fleshly, and the next thing you know, they're like, man, that's Jesus' father. I want nothing to do with that guy. I don't believe in this book. I'm throwing it out. That's why. All right? The kingdom is within you. All right? Exactly, Caleb. It's the anatomy of the body, the process of what happens in your body. All right, I'm going to bring you up, gentle jeweler. All right, I'm going to bring you up. All right, I'm going to be getting off here soon, though. All right, but I'll bring you up. All right, because your oh God, what was your name beforehand?
Decision.
Decision. Yes, sir. What's going on, man?
What's up, bro? You already know.
Absolutely, man. I already know you're on the truth. I already know. You were on the truth way back when, with the Melchizedek order and everything.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, I get it because a long time ago, I had a run in with the Old and New Testament, as you were saying. The Old Testament was only a figure of the New. And as you said, a representation. And we know that
Shadow. A shadow?
yes, shadow. Yeah, because we know. Yes, because we know a shadow is not the real thing. It's just an image of the real thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So we know that.
Connection timed out. That was interesting. All right, the connection timed out. Let me see if I can bring him back up. There you are. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, I,
Um,
I don't know, man. It says that your connection is like it's like on a red bar. That might be. I don't know.
okay. So yeah, so we know that as I was saying years ago, that the Son of Man is only the image of the Son of God. The Son of God is the true one, and the Son of Man was just a shadow of the true, right? So so I come through every now and then, and I try to encourage those in Fantasies Live about you when you're up there, because when you're up there, and I find myself coming up there too, and they really can't refute both of us, let alone at the same time.
Not at all. They're like, well, one thing I recognized the other night. Um, I was on a live. I was on there, and all 8 of them ganged up on me.
Wow.
And I started to realize something. I was on my way home from work the next day. I was like, man, like, why do they do this? Why is it that they just like take in turns? Just because they travel in packs. And guess who else travels in packs? Wolves. And what does Jesus talk about wolves?
Facts, facts. And yesterday, so I kind of like tuned in a little bit when you were talking a little bit yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and what you said, bro, was like on point to what I was shown probably about a couple of months ago, because um mind blowing. So you were talking about how the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and then the tree of life. And we know, and I knew that I need your number, man, because it ain't no way that we ain't really teamed up, bro, because we got too much in common. Even though I'm not real keen when it comes to the pineal gland and just the chakras and everything, it seemed like I don't even need it because I've been like warped and just shot up into that type of realm
Yeah,
without even knowing
yeah,
it.
yeah. You already know. So even a Christian that doesn't quite understand all this stuff and the process and all, you see, even by making the Bible spiritual, you're already there, pretty much. You're like, and what I like to do. This is me personally. I'm a very analytical person. Okay.
Facts.
Very analytical. So I need to know every single word in the Bible. I need to know what the heck's going on with everything. So I'm actually caught up in Joshua chapter 16 or 17 right now, and it's talking about all the tribes and with the maps and the locations. I have to look up every damn Hebrew word, and it gets annoying sometimes, but I have to do it. I have to figure it out. So,
Amen. Amen. But like I said, also give me your number. So um what I found out when you said that the tree of knowledge of good and evil
mhm.
is leads us to the tree of life. Actually, it's the tree of life broken down pretty much. Is the dissection of the tree of life. But once you put the knowledge of good and evil back together, it actually comes in the tree of life. So actually, let me say it like this: the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the shadow of the tree of life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like an illusion of what the
Amen.
truth is. It's the like you said, and ultimately, this is it's fascinating the way we can lay things out because this world is actually an illusion. The way we see it.
Facts.
The reason why is because we have a bunch of people walking around that don't know their identity. And when they don't know their identity, they share that to their surroundings and other people around them who don't know their identity. Therefore, we live in a world without identity, in other words.
Right, right. And so I go around with my sword, right, trying to help circumcise people because, they are living their lives according to an illusion, as you said, as according to the Son of Man. So they're living their life as a Son of Man. And when I come around and I see that, I've noticed that, then I'm here to help circumcise them. Therefore, I'm taking that skin off and showing them who they are behind the skin, right?
Right, right. Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
when man, I'm telling you, we really need to hook up, bro, because it's mind blowing when our Father, okay, is trying to reconcile us, what I'm saying, to who we are versus who we are not, right? And
Yes.
so with that being said, even when we talk about the law of circumcision, we know that's taking off the image so that the likeness could show. It's taking off the Son of Man so the Son of God can show. It's taking off the tree of knowledge of good and evil so that the tree of life can show, right?
Beautiful. Yep, yep. So here's something that's fascinating then. If you actually, and I was talking about this, I don't know if you were here when I was talking about this, but Paul tells us that we war in our inner members. This is where the warfare takes place. David actually says that the heart is almost like the middle point. It's like Middle Earth, the fight between heaven and earth is the heart. That's what David actually says. Now, what's interesting about all this, if you look at the warfare that happens in the Old Testament, it talks about how the Israelites had bows and they would slay the enemy with these bows. If you go do a Hebrew word study on the word bow in Hebrew, it actually means the word iris. So now what does a bow look like? Like that. Here.
Facts.
It's the iris. It's the eye of light. And what's happening is these arrows are being shot down and it's hitting the lower nature and it's destroying and unaliving that lower nature so that spirit man can rise up. But it doesn't take it all out of the way because there has to be a balance that will end up occurring as well. There has to be a balance, because you can't be so spiritually minded that you're no earthly good. All right? We still got to work. We still got to do things. I mean, we got people that are running around sitting there saying that the rapture is going to take place, so they sell everything that they have. So, you have to have balance in your life.
Yeah, I agree. Because one thing that I've understood is that we're able to increase and decrease.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're able to be exalted as well as be humble, right? Depending on the situation, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, and so, with that being said, like you said, we must become mature. Okay, one thing that helps me out a lot, brother, is that our Father has given me this type of system. For an example, I would say the beginning of the tree is the seed, and the end of the seed is the tree, right? So
Yes.
we see this generation, but then we see this regeneration, right?
Right.
And when we put them together, they all work as one. Like the beginning of the light is the darkness, and the end of the darkness is the light. So we know that both is needed for the other one to work, and in its respective time, in its respective place.
Right. Right. Well, Jesus even says in Luke 22, follow the man with the pitcher of water. Well, it was unheard of um, for a man to be carrying a pitcher of water in Hebrew culture. A man wouldn't be caught dead with a pitcher of water. So what ends up happening is when Jesus is talking about following the man with the pitcher of water into the house, then going to the house, it's going to be large and furnished in the upper room. He's not talking about a literal story about following a literal man with the pitcher of water. What he's saying is this man with the pitcher of water that you're going to follow and you're going to go into the house, it's going to happen in the time of the age of Aquarius, which is the age of the water bearer, where the water is going to be poured out upon mankind. But notice how you have to go into the house, because we are the house, upper room, upper consciousness, upper mind. The house is already large and furnished, but it wouldn't happen in that time exactly. It would happen down the road. This is why knowing the ages and everything that's going on is so important. And the time is now, because we are in that age of Aquarius. So,
Yeah, that's powerful. Another thing I was thinking when Paul saw this man pretty much deterring the people from hearing the message, right? He said, "You shall be blind for a season," right? And it said that the scales fell on this man's eyes. That right there was a power of darkness in a sense, actually, because he made this guy blind. He didn't make this guy see,
mm-hmm.
right? So he used that force against, and he called him a child of the devil as well. So he called him a child of the devil. When will he stop perverting, the wisdom of God? And so he cast a shadow over this dude, and the dude needed some help to walk out because he was blind, right? And so even that right there is showing you that how we have the power to do both, to make blind and to open up eyes as well,
Mm-hmm.
when it's needed.
Yeah, yeah. So in Matthew chapter 20, um, in Matthew chapter 20, at the end of it, Jesus is on the road to Jericho, and he's coming out of Jericho. And there's two blind men there, and they say, "Have mercy on us, son of David, and heal us." If you actually go to the Greek word of these men's eyes that were healed, it was their mind's eye. They were healed of spiritual blindness. And the reason why it was happening when they were coming out of Jericho, or when he was coming out of Jericho, is because Jericho means the moon. It actually means moon. You see, you have the left and right brain hemisphere. The sun rises on the east, just like the sun sets on the west. So the right side is a representation of that side of that higher spiritual nature, the sun. The left side is a representation of the moon. Jericho being a representation of the moon, or Jericho being called the moon, it was a understanding that they would have to come out of Jericho, and when they would, it would be because they were healed of their spiritual blindness, because now they could finally see. I hope that makes sense what I just said.
Yes, it does. So yesterday, this is mind blowing. Um, that because I always known this. Okay, um, like you were saying earlier, our body is the house, and we are the inhabitants in the house, right? And so when you think about a natural house, even though it has windows, the windows doesn't see. It's the person inside of the house that's looking out the window, right? So sight is in the person and not in the house, right? And so I say that to say that um, the body, like when it comes to the senses, I believe what I understand is that it's the spirit inside of the body that sees through the eyes of the body. It's the spirit inside of the body that hears through the ears of the
Keep on
body.
talking. I'm going to pull up a verse. I want to show you a verse in the Bible because this is very important what you're talking about.
All right.
All right, man. This is about to blow your mind. I'm going to get going here soon, but man, this is some awesome stuff right here. All right. Okay. So, this is King Solomon. All right. This is King Solomon, 1 Kings chapter 6. Let's go ahead and look at something here. All right. First and foremost, your body is the temple. Okay. You're talking about eyesight. You're talking about these things. All right. The Bible is always talking about a temple not made with human hands. Our body's the temple. And it's no different with the story of King Solomon. I want to show you something really cool, though. All right. So,
All right.
in this story, when we actually look at it, it talks about how the house which King Solomon built for the Lord had the length thereof of 60 cubits, which means 60 cubits. All right, the breadth thereof 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits. No matter which way you slice a cubit, it always ends up as the number of consciousness. Okay, or the number 9, sorry, which is the number of consciousness, whether it be higher or lower consciousness. The mark of the beast being 666. 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9, a representation of lower consciousness. The 144,000, 1 plus 4 is 5 plus 4 is 9, a representation of higher consciousness. This is why Jesus says, cast your net to the right side of the boat, where you're going to catch 153 fish. 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 3 is 9. All right? Always a representation of consciousness, higher elevation points, higher understanding. But let's go ahead and look at this. All right? So, the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length thereof was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits. And the porch before the temple of the house, 20 cubits was the length thereof according to the breadth of the house, and 10 cubits was the breadth thereof before the house. All right? So, this word porch here, when it talks about porches, in the Hebrew is actually the word vestibule. Okay? It's the it's the word vestibule in the Hebrew. Well, what's fascinating is you have something known as the vestibular nerve. that actually allows you to see through eyesight. Let's check out what the next verse is, though. Verse 4. And for the house he made windows of narrow lights. The windows of narrow lights are the eyes. It's telling you about it, and if you actually go to the Hebrew and you actually break it down, the windows is where your eyesight comes from. The porch before the temple of the house is that vestibular nerve that actually opens up and allows you to see through the light. All right. It's the window of the soul, or the windows of the soul, just like Honeybee said. All right. So it's, oh my God, man. It's amazing. But by the way, notice something. It says, in the house which King Solomon built for the Lord was this representation. Solomon was not a literal person, it's a figure. Solomon actually means the soul of man. All right. Or the soul on. The soul on. Is actually a representation of higher frequency, higher energy point. On is a representation of that city in Genesis 41:45, that place known as On in the Bible, which was also known as Bethel, which is the house of the Lord. On is a representation of that energy which travels through frequency into the great city. On. But it's the reason why it's for the Lord is because the house or the temple that's being built is a representation of your body, because God never dwelt in a temple made by human hands.
Facts.
All right. I just wanted to show you that because you were talking about the eyes, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. Wow. Yeah, so um the this body that we know our Father built for us to dwell in, right?
Mhm.
Um, to be a conduit, to be a means for us to uh, not only grow in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, to
Mhm.
mature as spirits, right? From a baby spirit to an adult spirit.
Absolutely.
Um, to help us to be cultivated, right? To mature us, okay? Um, so that this figure, because I'm real big on concepts and figures. I know that concepts explain figures and figures reflect concepts,
Mhm.
right? So we know that the image reflects the likeness, and the likeness pretty much tells us, explain to us, and give us clarity pertaining
Is
to
everything good, man?
huh.
The heck's going on? Are you at work or something?
No, bro. I'm outside and this wind just blowing things around type
Oh, I
stuff.
got you. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So
All right.
yes, I fully understand that, and I've been trying to teach and just trying to help direct other people to see that even though they see this figure in front of them, it's actually an illusion. It's actually a hold, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that confines something. So the first thing we see is an object, right? But we don't see the subject of the object. And I try to tell people that the object that you see first is actually a derivation. It is a extension of what you don't see, which is the subject. So actually, the true object is the subject, and the true subject is the object,
Wow. Interesting.
right? So what you see actually is the subject. What you don't see is the actual object,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
But that's where the inversion must take place. You must turn it inside out so that you can clearly see and understand um, what this thing is made of, what it consists of. Because we even know in life that if my objective is to go to school and become a doctor, I must go through these subjects, these classes, the actual certification.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was listening to you. I was listening to you. It's very interesting to think about, man, when we put all of it together, because the ultimate goal is to bring heaven to earth. All right, that's our ultimate goal here on this planet, to be a shining light for all of existence in humanity. You see, I believe the actual illusion is to think that when you die, you're going to go to a place of eternal bliss. And what I mean by that is, when we actually look at Jesus talking about heaven, he never talks about heaven as a place that you go to when you die. He never sits there and says, yeah, when you die, that's when you're going to get all these riches and everything. Never does he say that.
Facts.
Life is now. Life exists now. And this is where we are. This is where we're supposed to be. We're in the right century at the right time in the right location right now, and it was already pretty much written since the foundation of the world. All right, so we just need to continue on, man. Just keep on learning and keep on understanding and keep on trying to help people in Fantasy Bullies Live. That's all I can say.
For sure, bro. Yeah, I'll see you, bro. I love you. I appreciate you.
All right, love you, brother. Thank you once again. What's your name, by the way, man?
My real name is Dwayne.
Dwayne. All right, man. All right, brother. My name's Joshua.
All right, Joshua, man. Yeah, man. Send me your number or something, man, and you probably can build something. I don't know what, but I know we've been having the same heart and mind for some years now, and as you see, I'm still on it, bro. I ain't bucking.
Yeah, you're one guy I do respect. I really do, and I know you because I remember a couple of years ago, someone was trying to like bash me, and they brought you in. You're like, actually, Sons of God is exactly right, man. About this Melchizedek order and all this. So it was pretty cool, man. So
Facts.
all right, brother. Bless you, man. Yeah, we'll have to link up more for real. All right.
For sure. All right, love you, bro.
All
Appreciate
right.
you.
All right. Love you, brother. Have yourself a good evening. All right. All right, guys. Holy smokes. This got me on a whole new thing. I'm getting ready to study all this out. All right. Yeah, it's all here. We just have to see through the illusion, lift the veil. We never left the garden. Exactly. You're either the tree of knowledge of good and evil or you're the tree of life. All right. That's all there's to it. You're either the tree of the knowledge of good and evil or you're the tree of life. All right. So, guys, I pray that this was a blessing for you tonight, that this helped you. Um, I'm actually in the middle of writing a book on the Melchizedek order and the Levitical priesthood. It's more through the historical narrative, all right? But then after this, I plan on writing more things, probably esoteric. I just gotta figure it out. That's all right? All right. I like doing these lives more than anything because this is where fellowship time comes in. All right. That's where fellowship time comes in. I pray that this was a blessing for you guys tonight. I think we covered a lot of ground tonight. All right. Thank you for that, McRoovy. Bless you. Appreciate that. Um. So that's Lori. That's Lori actually. Yeah, Lori. She's been listening to me for quite some time, as it is. Explain Samson and his hair. Okay, I'm going to explain this and then I'm going to go ahead and get going here shortly. Okay, let's go ahead and explain this about Samson and his hair. Samson was actually he was a Nazarene. Okay, Nazarenes grew out their hair. They stayed away from strong drinks. And I think I'm missing one thing. Forget the other thing. Needless to say, Samson had 7 locks of hair. That's interesting. Why would he? Why didn't he have 12 locks? Why didn't he have 9? Why is it that he had to have 7 locks of hair, and the 7 locks of his hair gave him strength? Whenever you hear the number 7 in the Bible, it's talking about the 7 chakras. Okay? It's always talking about the 7 energy points. It's talking about that energy that actually comes throughout the nature of your body. All right? It's an esoteric story. The story of Samson is an esoteric story. Jesus, Yeshua, was actually a Samson Nazarite. All right? Paul was actually a Nazarite as well, but he was a Dionysian Nazarite. Paul actually shaved his head instead of keeping long hair. You see, the school of the Samson Nazarites actually believed that long hair actually was like an antenna, and it gave you higher understanding of mind. And I have to say, all right, I was a vegetarian there for about a year and everything, and I've gotten more out of having long hair than I've gotten out of ever being a vegetarian or anything. I've gotten more understanding and knowledge through having long hair. Paul was a Dionysian Nazarite that they believed they had to shave their head. Okay? I don't know. It's weird. All right? It's just like it's like an antenna, which is why I think women actually have stronger intuitional foundations than men. Okay? That's what I think. All right? But that is the story of Samson and his hair. There's some other stories in there about Samson too. Okay? But I hope that helped you guys tonight, and I hope this was a blessing for you. Uh, let's go ahead and end on this. If you guys would like to join the Facebook group, you can go to Sons of God Ministries discussion group. If you'd like to join the YouTube, Sons of God Ministries, okay? I have a bunch of videos on there. I'm actually going to upload this video as well, okay? And we are the portals. We are portals. Yeah, women are portals, not men. Okay, I had to think about that for a second. Yeah, women are portals that bring life into this existence. So, what ends up happening here is basically, if you guys would like to learn more and check out more videos, you can do so at Sons of God Ministries, okay, on YouTube. Yeah, the actually, it's kind of interesting because in coding, zeros and ones are made up of truths and falsehoods, okay? Zeros and ones. This is how the world is coded, all right? But the zeros are the women, the ones are the men. When the 0 and the 1 come together, they actually create new life. All right? They multiply the frequency of the software program. All right? That's what it's about. All right? So, basically what it is, the ones and zeros, truths and falsehoods coming together, duality, creating a newness of life to be brought into reconciliation or unity. All right? So, hope that helps you tonight. Hope that was a blessing for you. And that we can just continue on. Guys, I think this is like my third night on here in a row since like 3 to 4 weeks because I haven't really, I just been resting at that point. I was really sick. It was really bad. Like Brandy said, I think it receives info, an antenna, like you said. Yeah, it's like divine source and knowledge, like hitting your hair or something like that, and it hits the follicles. And it's the same thing with a beard, all right? Same thing with a beard. If you can grow like a really nice long beard, like I don't know, like one of the guys from Duck Dynasty, then that's perfect. All right. So Anyways, basically what we're seeing here is that there's like this connection or this link to source. Yeah, ZZ Top. There you go. All right. I'll tell you what, they ain't no sharp dressed band. Let's put it that way. So what occurs here is we can start to see how source actually enacts with us based off of different characteristics or features that we have. Okay? So now what needs to happen, and personally for myself, like I said, I've grown long hair, not only because of the antenna, but it's just my roots. I come from the Vikings. So I I like to sport the look. My dad has long hair, my brother has long hair. It's a thing. All right? Let's put it that way. But anyways, what ends up occurring in the story of Samson with his 7 locks of hair, he actually has those 7 locks of hair because it's a representation of the 7 spirits of God. When they're cut off by the treacherous woman, by the way, oh God, what the heck was her name? Delilah. Delilah is a representation of the emotions, okay? It's a representation of the emotions getting in the way of man. Oh, we'll go through the whole story one day. All right, there's a lot to it, but yeah, her whole name means some stuff too, and everything. But guys, I pray that this was a blessing for you tonight. I pray that this helped you. Let's just continue to keep on going, continue to learn as it is. If you guys would like to support this ministry, you can go do so by going to the tab in the main part of this page, and you can do so. We don't talk about tithing. Tithing has nothing to do with giving a percentage of your money, okay? It's supposed to be out of the goodness, the charity of your heart. True tithing actually comes through handing 10% of the subconscious mind, 10% of the subconscious mind over to the right-hand side, okay? So anyways, guys, I love you. I pray that this was a blessing, and we can just keep on going. God bless you. I'll talk to you guys here soon, all right? Love you all.